Good afternoon, morning, evening, whichever it may be. My name is Gunny Breen. I'm with MCTOG, the Marine Corps Tactics and Operations Group, and you're watching a screencast recorded April 15th, 2012 that demonstrates some of the primary capabilities of DOCTIMS, Digital Operations Center Tactical Information Management Software. I developed this software while serving as the watch officer for 2nd Battalion, 8th Marines in Afghanistan during 2011. This is not a period of instruction on how to use DOCTIMS, so I'll be going fast through some of it. An actual user's manual style presentation can be recorded separately at a later date if needed. So let's get started. So this is DOCTIMS. This is the primary interface when it first opens up. And you'll see across the top you've got all your different features and menu options. I'm not going to go through detail each one of these, just give you a quick brief overview. Current date time group, this is used to put the time into the clipboard so it can easily be used in reports, chat windows, that kind of thing. The clipboard, you've got clean, copy, and paste. Now DOCTIMS was originally designed when we were using Merc. So a lot of the functionality is specific to Merc, however a lot of it will translate over to Transverse as well. With Merc you get the typical date time group and then the username of the Merc user in every line that they type in. So what Clean does is Clean actually takes all that information out so that when you copy a report or some information from a Merc window, it'll clean all that extra stuff out and give you just the information that you need to actually put into a report. The split 452 is for going back into Merc. If you had a long paragraph, Merc would stop at the 452 character and cut everything after that off. What this would do is basically split it up into multiple lines so that it would send all of it at once and you wouldn't have to figure out where it got cut off at. The copy and paste is simply used to go back and forth between, whether it be Merc, Transverse, Microsoft Word, or whatever document you're using. DOCTIMS is designed to integrate or be used almost kind of as a medium between all the other software that we're already used to using inside the COC. DOCTIMS does have SharePoint integration. The air status, the mission tracker or patrol intentions, and all SIGACs are integrated with those three different SharePoint lists, and everything that you do in DOCTIMS will publish to SharePoint for the rest of the world to see. Now all that's done near real time. Basically when you update something it pushes that to SharePoint. Obviously SharePoint does go up and down a lot. You might lose your connection to the server and you're going to need to keep going. So you can simply disable SharePoint integration and continue with the mission. When you do come back online, you can re-enable it, and then there's a function that allows you to synchronize everything that was missed while you were offline. So as you can see, now that I've rechecked the SharePoint integration, it's actually connecting to MCTOG SharePoint. We are on the NIPA right now. SharePoint is on the East Coast, so you will see that delay a little bit. We do have Google Earth integration. Currently we're using a third-party tool called Data Tracker, which is down here. Everything that's done within DOCTIMS can be exported to essentially an Excel file, which this Data Tracker program will then convert the data out of that Excel file that DOCTIMS made for us and create this KMZ file, which is essentially an overlay file for Google Earth. And I'll show you a demonstration of that later on. We got a lot of different configurations in here. I'm not going to go through any of these right now. The report manager, this is the primary screen that you'll use for your journal and all the SIGACs. We're going to get into that a little bit. All your different reports, you can create them from here. These are all customizable. You can set up your own reports and basically tell it what each line is, what that line type is for validation, and so forth. And we'll get into a little bit more of that as well. Active reports, any current reports that are still open, this would be a quick way to get back to them. You've got a pause rep manager. This is where you'll be able to see all your maneuver units that are outside the wire. update their positions, actually grab the pause reps from the companies right out of the chat window, import them into here, and you're not having to retype or copy and paste each individual one. And again, we'll demonstrate that later. The patrol intentions, this is your mission tracker where you can keep track every time someone goes out. You set the patrol out, you can actually attach Excel file, manifests, and so on to it. Your patrol in, quick way to bring them back inside the lines for all your reporting. And then your patrol tracker, once we actually create some of these, will give you those statistics that you need, usually in the daily roll-up or in the sit-rep brief at the end of the day. We've got points of interest. We're going to go into that in some detail later. That's going to allow you to plot on the map and to see various, not statistics, but direction and distance and how close friendlies are to a specific location and so on. And we'll get into that. The Alpha roster, this is where you would essentially import or do the data entry for all your Marines with the blood type and ZAP numbers and everything else, and that information is going to get pulled in when you're doing medevacs and other information. Some miscellaneous things here. You can have your CSNEs, shift change brief, see who's using DOCTIMS, and then a real simple temperature converter that I made for the S2 real quick so they can put in 90 degrees and get 32 Celsius back. It's a little quick thing for them. The ATO, I'm not going to go a whole lot into this today. Basically what it does is it will parse the huge Excel file that you get from the wing. It'll look for specific lines that are in support of your unit or they're landing at one of your LZs and keep those in a handy place away from that huge document so that when you're trying to figure out what's on deck or what's coming up, you can see that. It was also integrated heavily with Merc to where all this information could be retrieved by a Merc user by simply whispering the Watcho or posting in, say, Battalion Tech 2, whichever window you wanted that feature to be enabled in. And they could type like exclamation ATO and it would regurgitate the live information to them. Air status was used for keeping track of the red, green, yellow, which LZs were able to launch medevac if needed, and again that information was then published and pushed out to the Merc windows. And then you've got your battle command display, which was we called it the runner board. Basically, you've got that one guy that's in charge of keeping all your paper copies, your paper maps, and your mission tracker board, and your SIG event board, all that handwritten stuff on the side walls. So he could look at this screen. There's not a whole lot to look at in here. It's empty now. But he could look at this one screen, and this automatically refreshes every minute, and he would know what he needed to write on the board in the event that the systems all went down. So that's the brief overview of what DOCTIMS does. So now to kind of give you a better demonstration of specific features, we're going to kind of run through a typical scenario of something that might happen in theater. So let's say the first thing that we need to do is say we have all our units in a particular squad. We're just going to go with Alpha 1-2 at this point, sends in their patrol intention to go outside the wire. So we came up here, patrol intentions, create a new patrol intention for patrol out. You click on the mission number, gives them the mission number. I have one in here from before when I was testing this out before recording the demo. So the call sign you can pick from your list of call signs. I'm not going to get into the whole configuration of where you set these up at. That would be a different screencast. So we'll say Alpha 1-2. It pulls information from another spot of the database where it knows what net ID they're on, the last slant that they had or what they went out with. We can adjust this as necessary. Gives you a short description. This is going to be used in the banners. And you'll understand more what that means. Basically, when you're taking that report and sending it up to RCT in that chat window, Transverse or Merc, that's the information it's going to use for this particular unit. Obviously, RCT doesn't care about the squad and the fire teams. They just want the company and the battalion. The long unit description, this is going to be used for a lot of the narratives and the reports that we do, so it already spells it out for us and saves us some time on that. They don't have a BFT, it's a dismounted patrol, and then their status. This is their last status from last time we did it. So we don't usually have to change a whole lot in there. What we're going to do for the start time, we're going to use some keyboard shortcuts here to put in the current time that they're going out. We'll say that the route they're going to do is they're from FOB red. We'll say sector Charlie Alpha 1 and then back to FOB red. Mission is going to be a security patrol, and Sergeant Smith will be our patrol leader. They don't have any vehicles. We'll say 12 U.S. forces, 2 ANSAF, no IDD. The administrative logistical movement checkbox would enable us to not count this in the patrol tracker, say if this was a resupply or something that we didn't want to put in there. Here we're going to say that this one is scheduled, and then if we did want to attach some kind of Excel manifest, then we could do that in here. So we're going to save this, and it's actually posting this to the SharePoint. So it takes an extra couple seconds for that to save. And there is our first patrol intention. Okay, so we've got our patrol intention in. So we're going to go to our pause rep manager. This is the screen that generally the watch chief sits on the most. And as you can see, these are our different windows for where everyone's at. These are completely configurable, so you can change Alpha, Bravo, Charlie. Pretty simple. Click down here, change those to the correct battalions for you, or the correct companies for your battalion, and that'll change what's above the window. So we're going to say that Alpha 1, 2, we find them in our statics unit down here. And we're going to say, once you click on a unit over here, all their information pops up. They're currently static at home at FOB red. That's their grid, their last status, daytime group, so on. So we're going to say they have departed friendly lines, update the date to now, and save. Now it's going to tell us that a single patrol intention for Alpha 1, 2 with an estimated time of departure was found. Would you like to mark this patrol intention as in progress? Now this is important so that your patrol tracker at the end of the day is accurately reflecting everybody that came in and out of the wire. So we did our patrol intention correctly, so when these guys leave it says we found it and we mark it as in progress. Again, that was updating the SharePoint, and so now we see we have our unit up here. So Alpha 1, 2, 1 minute ago, that's their current pause and then their status. We're going to go ahead and take these other 2 units from Alpha, and we're going to mark them as DFL as well. And you're going to notice for this one it says there's no patrol intentions, so it's asking you to go to the patrol intention screen and create that mission ticket. We're going to hit OK. It's going to let you keep going without it, but that warning should remind you that I need to do that, otherwise my patrol tracker, again at the end of the day, is not going to be up to date. So now we have our 3 units from Alpha and their grids. All their grids are at FOB red. They just walked outside the wire. If we needed to paste this to someone else, we could then simply hit this copy to clipboard button here. We could go into our chat window. I'm just going to kind of use Notepad to fake that one, and then paste our pause reps in there. And so it shows Alpha, it shows FOB red instead of the grid because it's an actual known static location. And then the daytime group, and it shows us how many minutes old that is. So we can quickly tell what units are behind the power curve when submitting their pause reps, who we need to get a hold of for updates. And then if we had all these filled out and we want to grab everyone, we've got some options up here. We could click, say, Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie, and then now when we hit copy, it's going to put all 3 of those groups in there, and then we could paste those. Notice Bravo and Charlie doesn't have anyone out, so it pretty much leaves them empty. Okay, so they have departed. 15, 20, 30 minutes goes by. Pause reps are due every 30 minutes for maneuvering units. We're going to go over to my little dummy Merc reports text file here. Say this is coming from a chat window, Battalion TAC 2. And they post their pause reps. And fix that typo I just saw there. Okay, so this gets pasted into the chat window, and we simply copy this We come back to DOCTIMS and we hit this import from Clipboard down here for our imports. All right, and as you can see, they show up alpha 1.1, alpha 1.2, 1.3. These are the grids that were in this pause rep table right here. And then the slant that they actually put in here is what shows up here. Now notice that this pause rep that they submitted was simply Papa Quebec 155924, and we automatically converted it to 41 Romeo, Papa Quebec in a full 10-digit grid. DOCTIMS is capable of determining exactly what grid zone designator they're in, if they're in Papa Quebec, November Quebec, so on. And I said I wasn't going to get into the configuration, but you can see here you've got an area of operations where you can essentially configure what your map sheet looks like, and that's how it figures out what grid zone designator they're in. So it basically determines, okay, if it's from 00 to 20, then we know that we're on this right side. If it's from 00 up to 20, then we know it's going to be the top. And if you're outside this range, you're past 20 or basically between 20 and 80, it doesn't know which side you're in, and it'll give you not an error, but it'll put question marks saying, I don't understand what grid, check your grid, or manually enter that grid zone designator because it's outside your area of operations. Now you'll notice that it also knew that this was alpha and not Bravo or Charlie, even though in here all they did was put 1.1, 1.2, and 1.3. Our Bravo pause reps are also 1.1, 1.2, and 1.3, and same with our Charlie. What it does is, and this is part of the configuration, and the first time that you import from someone that you've never imported from, it'll say, I don't recognize this 1.8 alpha Wacho, tell me which window are they responsible for reporting. So it remembers that and then automatically puts all their submissions and associates it with their units. So that way it allows the companies to focus on platoon and squad level. In the battalion, it'll figure out exactly which company is reporting for who. So before I demonstrate another company, we're going to go ahead and take this right here and basically click on it, and it'll load that information over here. And then if everything looks good, then you can go ahead and save. It removes it from the list. You click the next one, hit save, click the next one, hit save. Something hopefully it'll pop up later and I'll get to show it to you, but it does some basic checking to see if there was some kind of dyslexia or fat-fingered a grid, and if someone moves too far too quick, I think it's anything over 3,000 meters I set it up for, then it'll actually pop up with the window and say, warning, they appear to have moved too far, check your grid, make sure you got it right, are you sure you want to continue? Okay, so kind of continuing on our scenario. So they departed friendly lines, we did the mission tracker, their patrol intention, we updated their pause. And now we're going to say they call in a medevac. Okay, that's the first thing. You get over the radio, you get in a chat, hey, stand by for urgent medevac. All right. Now one of the options that you could do is come up here and simply hit create new report and go down to medevac. Another way to do it would be to come over to your report manager, which we have none at this time, but then over on the side you've got your option for medevac. Again, all these reports are customizable. You can create new reports, you can change these, delete these, so on to fit your current environment. Now the medevac is a specially formatted report, meaning that it's not just simply a series of line numbers, it's an actual form that's going to ask us different questions. Before we get to that screen though, it's going to ask us first of all what unit is reporting it. So we're going to say alpha 1.2, and then the default here is for a new SIG event. If this was a follow-on or another event that was wrapped into the same SIG event, we would see a list down here of existing ones. We would select it and then hit OK. But this is a new one, so we're going to go ahead and leave it and hit new. So this is our medevac form. Now just quickly going across the top, you've got your date of initial report, the event type, it's not closed, so there's no date time group in there, some different options to assign to it. And then again, the idea is not to have to retype all this stuff for the reports. It's designed to integrate with Merc or Transverse or your chat and pull that information out of that window and then simply paste it into the report. Now for the medevac, they typically don't type in a fully full report. You're getting pieces of information as it comes in, and we need to get that to hire as soon as possible. So that's the technique I'm going to demonstrate for this one. So first thing we know is we can wait for them to give us a grid, or we can simply hit use last known. They just gave us a pause rep 5 minutes ago. They should be giving us pause reps every 30 minutes anyway. So we've got a pretty good idea of a general grid square where we need to get that bird. If we need to refine that grid while it's on its way in, then absolutely no problem, we can do that. So this is a quick way to get line 1. Line 2, the battalion is almost always going to use the same call sign and freak. The bird's going to check in with battalion before it gets pushed down to the guys on the ground. So that's what we're going to use. We don't need to wait for the company or the squad on the deck to tell us that. Simply use the drop downs. We can say urgent. Okay, so let's say that's all we know at this point. You'll notice in the corner here that we've got this clipboard, and this is kind of showing us the report that it's been generating as we've been filling this stuff out. And it put checkboxes in here to say that yes, as we changed it, we want to include that. So we're going to come right over here, and actually, first thing we didn't do is subject. Automatically click on subject, and it's going to make our subject line based on the unit. It's going to change it to the company and battalion, medevac, and then the date time group. Okay. So now we're going to say copy to clipboard. Alright, now when we hit the copy to clipboard, you'll notice that it unchecked these boxes because we've already done this, and it turned these green, letting us know that this is information that we've already submitted. So we're going to come into our dummy RCT window, and we're going to paste that in. And you'll notice that this is a properly formatted partial medevac request. You've got the company battalion, medevac, the date time group, and then the first 3 lines. So we come back here. As we're talking to them on the ground or talking to the company, we start getting the rest of the information. Okay, no special equipment. It's a litter. The security is possible enemy. Marking is with smoke. Patient's nationality, ISAF military. Description, you can say HDLZ 200 by 200. No remarks at this time. All right, now for the ZAP number, say they only give us just the ZAP without the blood type. As soon as we go down to the next one, you see it automatically grabbed the O positive and then gave us the name of the actual Marine down here. Now this name isn't involved anywhere in the report. That's just for our knowledge, and also because the regiment Wacho is going to want this information whispered to him anyway. So here we have it. And that also lets us know that we did get at least a valid ZAP number, and that it matches the roster, and that there is someone with this information. So method of injury, we can go in here and fill those in, and basically just by typing the first letter of something on this list is what fills it in. You can type in anything you want according to the situation. So we've got the rest of these. As we typed them in, it checked it. We did submit already, so we're going to check that, and that's going to change this to update. So now regiment knows when we send them this that this is not a new one, but this is an update to the medevac request with this particular date time group in that unit. Now, had they given us a medical mission number already, and we filled that in, then the update would update that actual mission number instead of the date time group, because ultimately this is what we're going to go by. So now we copy this to the clipboard. It turns everything green, unchecks everything, and now when we come in here and paste in our RCT window, we see the update and then all the missing information. In the event we need to send this to someone else, we can always copy the full report regardless of what's checked, and then there you have it. So there's our full medevac report. Okay, so the other thing to notice on this screen is that we've got this narrative up here, which by default just says developing the situation at this time. You can simply click on the narrative, and it's going to attempt to fill in some of the basics for us so that we're not typing the same thing over and over. And it basically says, at this time, 2nd Squad, 1st Platoon, Company A. Again, that's that narrative that it pulled from that unit, was conducting a dismounted partner patrol. It knew that because of that patrol intention we put in. If we had said there was vehicles, then it would have said mounted. If we had put 0 for ANSAF, it would have said non-partner. Pulls the grid and it automatically does some calculation. We're going to get into these calculations later, but it tells you that grid where they called in that medevac is 680 meters west-northwest, 275 degrees of fob red when they. And then it kind of leaves it there for us to fill in whatever we want. So when they requested urgent USMC medevac. And of course, you're going to make that a little bit more detailed, but we'll just go with that for the demo. All right, so now we save that. And again, this is posting this. As soon as we hit save, it's posting an updated copy of this to the SharePoint. And now it takes us back to our report manager screen. So this is where you'll end up with that long list of all your reports as time goes by. And you've got some different filters that you can view these with. So you've got the all open in today's, which is the most common. You'll leave it on. You've got everything last 24 hours, so that way the new watch officer coming on at midnight isn't looking at a blank screen. He can actually see what happened on the shift before him. You've got incomplete reports. You can look at everything. You can look at only the open SIG events, all open events, those that are pending submission to hire, and then SIG events near a specific location. And this one is pretty cool. It'll give you basically information based on everything that's ever happened. It'll show you what has happened nearby. So if we simply put in a grid, say a month from now we're out on patrol and something happens at this grid, we can say, okay, what else has happened near here? Kind of like the S2 doing their pattern of life. And you would get this list sorted by distance of closest to the location. So you'll see, okay, back on this date, on the 15th, we had a medevac 608 meters away. And then the list will go down. We had a SAF, we had an ID, we had this, we had that. All the distances from there. So that's a handy tool that's helped us get fires approved because we were able to show a pattern of life and frequent enemy contact in an area in order to get those rounds approved. Okay, so moving on with our scenario. We've got the medevac in. Now let's say the bird launches, the bird comes and picks him up. We're going to go ahead and mark this as complete. We would update our narrative to say, okay, wheels down, point of injury at this time, wheels up, point of injury at this time, wheels down, bastion at this time, mission complete. And of course we're going to have a lot more details in there, but that works for now. So we save that, and this particular report, not necessarily the event, is closed. Obviously something caused that medevac, and since it was in the mist that it was an IED, we kind of know that an IED strike report is going to be coming. Alpha 1-2 sitting on the cordon needs to submit that IED strike if they want to get EOD out there. So we click the IED strike, we find Alpha 1-2, and now this is not a new SIG event because this is tied to the medevac that we just did. So now when we hit OK, and this brings up our IED strike report, along with the narrative from the medevac. So we can simply come over here, we'll modify our subject to say IED strike medevac. Now we don't want to have to type line by line this. Hopefully they're submitting a full report to us in transverse. So I've got one kind of set up here. So we're going to say that this is what they send. So we simply copy that from the chat window. And then when we come over here and we hit from clipboard, it's going to fill in the information. Now you'll notice here the date time group, it did not turn green like our location did. Date and location should always turn green to tell us that it was done correctly. So late report 23 hours ago, something is not right. Today's actually the 15th. So did they mean to put 15 instead of 14? Well, if they did that, it would turn red date time groups in the future. So it's actually 1643 right now. So let's change this to 1640. And now you notice it goes green. So there's that visual cue to make sure that the information we're putting in is of quality. The grid, same thing. You noticed we talked about before how it automatically pulls the grid. If we go back and look at the report that they sent us, all they gave us was 15009234, and it converted that into a fully qualified grid based on the information that we configured DOCTIMS with, saying was our area of operations. And then the rest of the information was simply pulled straight from the report that we copied and pasted in. So now the same thing. For this, we do a copy to Clipboard, and then when we come to our regimental chat window and we paste that in, it's a nice and neat, cleaned up company battalion ID strike with the daytime group, all the information that they need. Of course, we would have been typing in here to add stuff, ask questions as needed, clean it up, fix it, and then that's when we paste it into the regiment window. So we submit it to them. We click the submitted, and now when there's updates, because obviously EOD still has to get out there, they're going to conduct post-blast, all that good stuff, we can simply hit this reset button, and that tells us at 1644, it grabs the current time, Alpha 1-2, reports, PVA complete, device consisted of, so on. Alright, now when we hit this copy button, it gives us a new line to put any future updates in, and it took what we put in here into the clipboard so that we can paste this back into RCT, but it added everything that you see here before us, which is the update, company, battalion, ID strike, and the daytime group. Obviously, regiment needs to know what event it is that we're providing an update to, because you can have multiple events open at the same time. So that avoids you having to retype all this information so that they understand what's going to what. So we close that out. Let's say that's well thought out and finished, and it's got all the information it needs. So we click up here, it puts the date in there, and closed. And now we will save. Again, this is posting to the SharePoint. So anyone using the SharePoint as a dashboard for the journal or SIG events is seeing everything as we're doing it. If at any time you want to update that SharePoint without actually doing a save and close, your other option is to come up here and just simply hit save instead of the save and close or this one, and it'll update that SharePoint while still on your screen if you're just waiting for more information to get that out. Alright, so we have our medevac. We've got it followed up with the ID strike report. They have come out, they've finished it up. Now they're getting ready to collapse the cordon, and Alpha 1-2 calls in that they see a possible enemy spotter on a rooftop. So this is where we're going to go to our points of interest. Okay, so in our points of interest here, we can simply come up here and put in what they see. Okay, they see an enemy spotter, and at the grid that they gave us, we're going to say 14809300. Again, automatically converted that to a fully qualified 10-digit grid, and we hit add. That puts it into our point of interest list. So this is how long ago we added it. That's the grid. It tells us the nearest static location to the grid that they gave us. So the enemy spotter is 1 kilometer west-northwest, 307 degrees to be exact, of FOB Red. Alpha 1-2 is 632 meters south-southeast of this enemy spotter. And the nearest compound to this enemy spotter is this grid, which is Sector Charlie Alpha 1, Compound 1, and it's 1.2 kilometers east-northeast, 89 degrees. So very quickly we can see what static position and what friendly and what compound is closest to here. And this information is handy when giving it to air, try to get some rotary wing on station to look at that, or ISR, giving it to the deuce, or simply to call whatever unit is nearby to make sure that their SA is up to speed on what's going on. And you can copy this entire list to the clipboard and paste it into a chat window if needed, just like we did everything else. So it shows points of interest, the grid, and how long ago. Okay, so they give us this point of interest. Now there's a lot of different things you notice on the screen where, for one, we can use, let's say they didn't call in and give us an actual grid, but they just simply said that the spotter is at Charlie Alpha 1, Compound 1. You can come in here, put in Charlie Alpha 1, Compound 1, and it gives us the grid. It pulled that out of the database, and we can either copy that to the clipboard, again, to paste into a chat window, or we could simply insert that point of interest into our table. Now, if we notice down here, while this gives us the nearest friendly, if we highlight that, make sure it goes to distance directed, distance direction to selected POI, we can see all of our maneuver units that are outside the wire and exactly who is how far and what direction from there. So for particular points of interest, if ISR sees a hotspot or a nearby area has got some contact at the edge and they're thinking about putting an op box up, this is a very quick way to see who's nearby. Is it going to affect us? Can we go ahead and give them that op box, or who do we need to call and let know what's going on? So that was the compound. Another thing that we can do is we can actually take a grid and find out what compound is that nearest to. A lot of people, it's easier to find a compound on a map than it is to try to dig up a grid and locate that. So we say we highlight Alpha 1, we hit the fill, let's say G2, fill the grid from the selected friendly. So we grab that grid, we put it over here, look up compound, and it tells us 1.1 kilometers of that grid is Charlie Alpha 1, number 1. You can also look up static locations. So, Foul Bread starts reporting to hear gunfire. You don't have the grid on a post-it or something right on your desk. Here's a quick way to grab it. You can actually insert this POI, put it up here, or again, just copy and paste that and put it right into your chat window. There's also a direction distance tool. So let's say you've got the grid that you want to start with. You want to look 45 degrees, 300 meters, and then it gives you that target grid. The direction will take either degrees or mils. It figures that out by if it's 360 or less, it assumes you mean degrees. If you've got 4 digits, meaning if we wanted 0045 mils, we could do that too. Notice it updated the grid here for us. So it'll take both based on how you enter that information. And then we could import or insert that POI as well. It puts it in as simply distance direction, and we can come up here and change this to say, hotspot or whatever it is that was noted. Okay, so that's the points of interest. So they found the enemy spotter. We didn't see anything with ISR. They continue their movement back to the fob, and they end up taking small arms fire on the way back. All right, now I know this report is more of a theater report than doctrine, but it does do a lot for us, so I'm going to go ahead and show it to you. So we're going to create a staff report. We're going to say that this is Alpha 1-2. It's not a new SIG event because this is all tied into the IED strike and the medevac. It appears to be a complex ambush. So now this is our SAF screen. So the first thing that we need is what's the number of enemy. We're going to say 1 for the number of friendly forces and ANSAF forces. We don't have to look back into their patrol intention. We've already got that information in the database, so we can just hit auto, and it'll pull that straight from the patrol intention. The enemy actions, we can click from the drop down, or we can pick, or we can type whatever happened there. Patrol type, it automatically knows that it was dismounted and partnered based on the fact that they have no vehicles and that they do have ANSAF with them. We can insert their last pause rep that they reported to us in here. Or we can type in, if they happen to call in a new pause, say 125, 151, they moved, and it also tells us how far they moved from their last position. Again, give you that warm and fuzzy that you're not typing in a grid dyslexic numbers backwards. So 141 meters, reasonable distance. Okay, the grid's probably valid. Again, the direction will say that they said 300 degrees, and this was 600 meters. Gives us our enemy grid. We can put in the time is now, and then we can say gain pit and return fire. Again, you've got a drop down of common things, and these are all configurable. So you can set up whatever your common friendly actions are, or you can always type in something unique as needed. And you hit auto generate here, automatically pulls the company and squad in here, because when this report gets sent to hire, you'll notice that it has just a company and battalion, so you still want to know, at least in the remarks, which squad it was. So this is our form for working the SAF report. Once it's complete, or it's good to where we like it and we want to send it to hire, you simply hit fill from form. It takes all that information, puts together a properly formatted report. We hit copy to clipboard, and now we can come back in here and we can paste that report into the regiment window. And so that is a properly formatted SAF report with all the information that RCT is going to be expecting. Over here we have some of those same tools to look up sectors and compounds and get grids. So if they say they're taking fire from this compound instead of this grid, you could simply put in Charlie Alpha 1, compound 1, and then just hit insert enemy, and that would automatically put that grid as that enemy location here. Same thing, static locations. If it's a FOB that's reporting they're being post is being shot at, you could simply pick the FOB that is, and then hit insert friendly, and then that would put the friendly grid in there for your report. You've got just a static diagram, so you can quickly see all your mils and degrees, so you don't get anything backwards if they start reporting, 5,000 mils. You can quickly go, okay, yeah, that's northwest. Your narrative was pulled from, remember we added this to our IED strike and medevac, so we have our IED strike, medevac, and SAF. We'll update that. We would come in here and say, wall en route to FOB red, Alpha 1-2, reported small arms fire, so on. Obviously a lot more detail into there. Now, obviously this needs to be closed up. You can't just leave the SAF open. So if they continued mission, or if they end up maneuvering, getting shot at again, you continue those updates. There's a couple different ways we can do that. You can do this form again based on new contact, and then simply hit the form button. Okay, we're getting a warning that the date time group matches the original, because we didn't actually change anything here. So what we're going to want to do is, let's say now they're getting shot at from 200 degrees, same distance. We're going to update that time, and then we're going to check both these boxes, and then that's going to put the enemy and friendly action, and this is in our update. So now when we copy, go to our RCT window and paste, now we have update, the company, the battalion, the daytime group, the original report at this time, this unit at this grid received, and again it gives us the information, distance from the grid, gives the friendly action, gives everything that we need for that report. Once they finish, the most common one that we had was just the friendly action. Let's continue with their mission. That classic line of no friendly force, local national casualties or damage. And now when we update our time form, it gives us that update. Copy that to the clipboard, paste it to regiment window. So this one is closed. So we complete, it was submitted, it is closed. We add our narrative, and now we save and close. And again, this is getting pushed to the SharePoint for everyone else to see this updated information. All right, so now we have all of our events. Some of the things to show you what it's been doing in the background. Well, the SharePoint has been doing in the background. So if we go to our SharePoint page, this is what we used to have in here. Now I'm going to refresh this. And we're going to see we're on our all items list, so this is everything. Contains, you got your SIGAG number, date time group, call sign, unit description, this event. It lists all the events that happen in this SIG event. This will enable different filters and searching for historical purposes. If you want to say, show me all medevacs that had an IED strike with it, you could do that right within SharePoint. So you don't have to have DOCTIMS after the fact to go back and look at all this information and analyze it. And then you've got the raw data that's got the actual reports for everything that went in here. So you've got your medevac, you've got your IED strike, you've got the updates to the IED strike, you've got your SAF report, you've got everything that you submitted to regiment essentially in this raw data field. Now you're not going to want to look at all that on the SharePoint. You'll probably have a web page for the COC that's a dashboard. So you'll go here. Now we put everything as closed, which is why nothing shows up as on here for that particular view. So I'm going to come back in here to one of our reports. Thinking. Okay. So we got our D. We'll say that it's not closed. Save publishing that to the SharePoint. So now that one is still open, now when we hit refresh, okay, so now we have our open IED strike. Now, of course, it's the same SIGAG number, so you're really seeing everything. But so this is an example of what you could set up for your dashboard in the COC to see all open events as they're happening. So you do everything once in DOCTIMS, and it's automatically updating the SharePoint for everybody else. Now, the other thing that we haven't touched on yet is Google Earth. I showed you this data tracker. What we did just there is we basically created this Excel file from everything within DOCTIMS that we can then go into this data tracker. We select that Excel file that we just created in DOCTIMS. We load our configuration file that's saved for this purpose. And then we generate the output. And processing complete. So this created our KMZ file, our Google overlay file. So if we go into Google Earth, I should have showed you this before when everything was blank, but everything that we have been doing in DOCTIMS is now in this overlay file for Google Earth. So we see in here, let's refresh this. This should actually refresh every 4 seconds on its own, but we haven't had it open in a while, so it stopped. Alright, so here is our updated information. You see we've got our 3 alpha positions that were out there, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 3. Right here, these are our green icons for our maneuver units. We have our points of interest. We have our enemy spotter. We have our hotspot that we made. We've got that compound that we put in there. And clicking on one of these gives you some basic information, such as the grid, the description. It gives you that direction, distance of known location. Our SIG events are all in here. This is our medevac, our IED strike. It's got the narrative from our DOCTIMS report that we put that in there as well. And so by putting this into this network linked file, anyone in the COC or even outside the COC who points to this will automatically see these icons bounce around their screen, and new SIG events and new points of interest pop up as you're creating them in DOCTIMS. DOCTIMS database is shared on a shared drive, so anyone in the COC can be running the same version. Multiple people can be inputting this information. Usually the watch chief will do the pause reps, the watch officer is doing the reports, so on, however you have it worked out. But multiple people can input, and then multiple people can see the output from this. Now there is a lot more that DOCTIMS does. I'm looking at the timer here. I see we're up to 50 minutes. So I don't want to continue to give you too much information. We talked about the ATO, the air status. If we go back and look at this battle command display, now we would see the 3 units that are actually maneuvering. So our guy keeping the boards up to date, the paper boards, sees that. We didn't put any additional scheduled missions in. We do have those SIG events that happen, the medevac, the ID, and the SAF. And it gives us the pertinent information, the shorthand that he can write up on that board, what's open and what's closed. So that is a general overview of the capabilities of DOCTIMS, and there's so much more that could be done with this to change from all the mark integration that I didn't go into a lot of detail on, since we're now using Transverse, and then the Google Earth. Ultimately would like to get that third-party data tracker app taken out and do it directly within DOCTIMS. You just have to learn how to do the conversion from MGRS to lat long in order to make that happen. So, okay, so I hope that gives you a good idea, and I look forward to any feedback that you may have.